The bridge of the USS Valiant was quiet except for the soft hum of computers and the occasional beep from the control panels. Captain Daniel Carter sat in his command chair, reading through boring supply reports on his tablet. They had been out here in deep space for 3 months now, far from Earth and far from any human colonies. Most days were the same, just flying through empty space and scanning for anything interesting. Lieutenant Amy Foster was at her station, watching the sensor screens like she always did. Her job was to look for anything unusual, but in 3 months they had found nothing except empty planets and old rocks floating in space. She was getting tired of looking at the same empty readings day after day. Then something changed. A small beep came from her console, then another, then several more in quick succession. Amy leaned forward, her eyes going wide as she studied the data appearing on her screen. This was different. This was very different. "Captain, I am picking up something unusual on the long-range sensors," she said, her voice cutting through the quiet bridge. Daniel looked up from his tablet immediately. After 3 months of nothing, unusual was exactly what they needed. "What kind of unusual, Lieutenant?" Amy's fingers moved quickly across her keyboard, pulling up more information. The glow from her screens made her face look blue in the dim bridge lighting. "It is a distress signal, sir. But the pattern does not match any human vessel in our database. I have never seen anything like this before." Commander Peter Grant stood up from his seat near the back of the bridge. He was older than most of the crew, with gray hair and deep lines on his face from years in space. "Are you saying it is alien?" "That would be my guess, sir," Amy said, transferring the data to the main view screen at the front of the bridge. Everyone could now see the strange pulses of energy, appearing in patterns that seemed almost random, but clearly carried some kind of meaning. There was also a sound component, like static mixed with something that sounded almost musical. Daniel felt his heart beat faster. Every officer in the Earth Space Fleet trained for first contact with alien life. They all studied the protocols and procedures. But deep down, most of them never really expected it to happen. Humanity had been traveling through space for almost 200 years now. They had found plenty of dead worlds, some old ruins that proved aliens had existed long ago, but never any living aliens. Until now, maybe, can you find out where it is coming from? Daniel asked, standing up from his chair. "Working on it now, Captain," Amy replied, her fingers still dancing across her controls. "The signal is coming from about 47 light-years away from our current position. Based on how degraded the signal is, I think it was sent about 3 weeks ago." 3 weeks, Peter said quietly. "If someone is in trouble out there, they might already be dead?" Daniel nodded slowly. 3 weeks was a long time. But they had to try. "Lieutenant Foster, can you clean up that signal? I want to know exactly what we are hearing." For the next 20 minutes, the entire bridge crew worked in focused silence. Amy ran the signal through different computer programs, trying to filter out the noise and interference. Jacob Myers, their communications specialist, tried to find any data hidden in the transmission. Everyone knew this could be the most important discovery in human history. Finally, Amy looked up from her console. Her face had gone pale. "Captain, I think you need to hear this." She played the filtered signal through the bridge speakers. The static was gone now. What they heard instead made everyone on the bridge feel cold inside. Under the alien sounds, there were noises that could only be screams. There was the sound of weapons being fired. There was the crackle of energy weapons hitting things. And underneath all of that, there was a phrase being repeated over and over in a language no human had ever heard before. But the fear and desperation in the voice needed no translation. "They are being attacked," Peter said, his voice barely above a whisper. Daniel sat back down in his command chair, his mind racing. The Valiant was an exploration ship, not a warship. They had weapons, but not many. The crew numbered 212 people, including 40 Marines. Getting involved in an alien war could be incredibly dangerous. It could risk everything. But ignoring a distress call, ignoring people who were crying out for help, that went against everything Daniel believed in. It went against everything humanity was supposed to stand for. "Jacob, Can we tell if the attackers are also sending any transmissions? The young communications officer shook his head. Nothing on any frequency we can detect, sir. Just the distress signal. Daniel made his decision. He knew some people back on Earth might disagree with what he was about to do. He knew the rulebook said he should probably contact Earth Command first and wait for orders. But by the time he got those orders, whoever sent that signal would probably be dead. Helm, plot a course to where that signal is coming from. Maximum speed. Communications, prepare a response message. Let them know that help is on the way. Amy turned around in her chair to look at him. Sir, should we not contact Command first? We are talking about possible first contact with 2 alien species. One of them appears to be hostile. By the time we get permission from Earth, whoever sent that signal will likely be dead, Daniel replied firmly. We will send a full report to Command, but we are going to help those people. That is in order. Peter nodded his agreement. I will get the Marines ready for anything. As the Valiant's engines powered up and the ship turned toward the source of the signal, Daniel could not shake a strange feeling. He felt like humanity was about to cross a line that could not be uncrossed. They were about to step into something much bigger than themselves. The distress signal continued to pulse through the speakers, a desperate cry for help that was now traveling across the void of space far away. In a region of space that humans had marked on their maps but never visited, a peaceful alien species was fighting for survival. The Kether had sent their distress call hoping anyone might hear it. They knew it was probably hopeless. But in the darkest moment of their civilization's history, they were about to learn something important about the universe. They were about to learn that their message had reached a species that believed in a simple rule. When someone calls for help, you answer. No matter the cost. No matter the danger. You answer. The USS Valiant jumped to faster than light speed, racing toward a battle that would change the galaxy forever. On the bridge, Daniel Carter and his crew prepared themselves for whatever they might find. They did not know what kind of aliens they would meet. They did not know what kind of enemy they would face. But they knew one thing for certain. They were not going to let innocent people die without trying to help. That was the human way. That was who they were. The journey would take 3 days. 3 days to prepare. 3 days to plan. 3 days before they would arrive at a war zone and announce humanity's presence to the galaxy. Not with words of peace and diplomacy, though those would come later, but with fire and fury, defending those who could not defend themselves. In the depths of space, the distress signal continued its desperate call. And humanity, young and inexperienced in the ways of the galactic community, was racing to answer it. The signal had crossed the void, and now humanity was crossing that same void to respond. History would remember this moment. The moment when humanity took its first real step onto the galactic stage. The moment when Earth's children proved what they were made of. The moment when a simple exploration ship decided that doing what was right was more important than following the safe path. Captain Daniel Carter did not know it yet. But his decision in that quiet moment on the bridge would echo across the stars for generations to come. The choice to help. The choice to fight. The choice to stand up against evil even when facing impossible odds. The Valiant flew on through the darkness, toward a battle that would test every member of its crew. Toward a first contact that would be written about in history books. Toward a moment that would define humanity's place among the stars. The distress signal had crossed the void, and humanity had answered. 3 days of traveling through faster-than-light space felt like an eternity to the crew of the Valiant. Everyone knew what they were flying toward. Everyone had heard the screams in that distress signal. The ship buzzed with nervous energy as people prepared for whatever was coming. Marines checked their weapons again and again. Engineers made sure every system was working perfectly. Medical staff prepared emergency supplies and set up extra beds in the medical bay. When the Valiant finally dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the alien star system, what appeared on the main view screen made everyone on the bridge fall completely silent. For a long moment, nobody could find words to describe what they were seeing. "Oh my God," Amy whispered finally. The planet in front of them was beautiful. It was about the same size as Earth, covered with vast purple oceans and green continents. But around that beautiful planet was a scene of absolute horror. There were pieces of destroyed satellites floating everywhere. Huge alien warships, each one at least 3 times bigger than the Valiant, surrounded the planet in a loose formation. Energy weapons fired down from the ships in continuous streams, hitting the surface of the planet. Shields around the cities below flickered and sparked, getting weaker with each hit. "Run a full scan of the system," Daniel ordered, trying to keep his voice calm even though his hands were shaking. "I want to know everything about what we are dealing with." Amy's fingers flew across her control panel, gathering information. "I am reading heavy weapons fire on the planet's surface. The attacking ships are hitting what look like cities and towns. Captain, these are not precision military strikes. They are trying to kill everyone down there. How many life signs can you detect on the planet?" It is hard to tell through all the interference from the weapons fire, but I am reading millions of life signs. The population was probably in the tens of millions before this attack started. Peter leaned forward from his station, studying the tactical display that showed the positions of all the enemy ships. "Those ships are huge, but look at their formation. It is sloppy and disorganized. They are not expecting anyone to fight back. They think they have already won this battle." Daniel clenched his jaw tight. The Valiant had some weapons, but not nearly enough to fight over 40 massive warships. Every bit of training he had received told him to retreat right now. Report what they found and let the proper military forces from Earth handle this. But those military forces were months away at best. By the time help arrived from Earth, everyone on that planet would be dead. When someone calls for help, you answer? That was what Daniel believed. That was what he had always believed. "Commander Grant, give me a full report on our military capabilities." Peter pulled up the weapons inventory on his screen. "We have 20. 4 torpedo tubes, railgun batteries on the front and back of the ship, point defense lasers all around the hull, and those experimental plasma cannons we got at our last stop. We also have 40 Marines under Lieutenant Kyle Henderson. If we need more fighters, we can arm another 100 crew members with rifles and pistols." "Against 47 capital ships," Amy added quietly, her voice filled with concern. "Sir, even if we manage to destroy 1 or 2 of them, they will overwhelm us in just a few minutes." Daniel stood up from his command chair and straightened his uniform. "Then we will just have to make sure we do more than destroy 1 or 2. Jacob, are you picking up any communications from those ships?" "Yes, sir, lots of chatter on multiple channels, all in the same alien language. It sounds very harsh and aggressive. The translation computers are working on it, but it will take some time. Keep working on it. Amy, can you find any weak points in their ships or their formation?" Amy ran multiple scans using all her years of tactical training. "The ships are using a lot of energy shields, but their armor plating looks relatively thin. They are built to overpower enemies with brute force, not to survive long fights. And, Captain, there is something else important. Those weapons they are using to attack the planet are generating massive heat signatures. If they have been firing for days without stopping, their cooling systems must be running at maximum capacity and probably starting to fail." An idea started forming in Daniel's mind. It was dangerous and probably crazy, but it might work. "Peter, get Henderson and his Marines ready for boarding operations. Amy, I want targeting solutions for the 3 ships closest to our position. Jacob, as soon as you get those translations working, I want to know what those aliens are saying to each other." "Sir, are we really going to attack them?" Amy asked, her voice uncertain. Daniel looked at the planet on the view screen. He thought about the millions of people down there, fighting for their lives. He thought about his own daughter back home on Mars Colony. He thought about what kind of universe he wanted her to grow up in. One where strong people helped weak people, or one where might made right and the powerful could do whatever they wanted. "Yes, we are going to attack," Daniel said firmly. "All crew members go to battle stations immediately. This is not a drill. Unknown hostile forces are committing genocide against an alien civilization. The USS Valiant is moving to intervene. Prepare for combat. Throughout the ship, alarm sirens began to wail. Crew members ran to their assigned positions. In the Marine barracks, Kyle Henderson gathered his 40 troops together. Most of them were young, and many had never seen real combat before. He looked at their nervous faces and gave them the best speech he could. Listen up, Marines. We are about to go into a fight against an enemy we know nothing about. They are bigger than us, and there are more of them. But they are bullies who attack defenseless people. And we do not let bullies win. Check your gear, watch each other's backs, and remember your training. Let's show them what happens when they mess with humanity. In the engineering section, Chief, Mechanic Linda Shaw pushed the ship's reactors to maximum power output. She knew the systems would be stressed beyond their normal limits, but that did not matter right now. She whispered a quick prayer that everything would hold together long enough. In the medical bay, Dr. Greg Palmer finished setting up the last emergency bed. He hoped he would not need to use even half of them, but he prepared for the worst. Captain, Jacob called out from his station. The translation is coming through now. Sir, they are not discussing tactics or battle plans. They are placing bets. Bets on what? On how long it will take them to kill everyone on the planet. They are calling the people down there soft ones and prey species. This is sport to them. They are enjoying this. The anger that flashed through Daniel was cold and sharp. He had seen evil before in his years of service, but this was something different. This was cruelty on a level he had never imagined. These aliens were not just killing, they were enjoying the killing. Lock all weapons on the 3 closest ships, Daniel ordered, his voice hard as steel. Amy, target their cooling systems first, then their shield generators. Peter, have the boarding team standing by. We are going to show these creatures that there is a new species in this part of space, and we do not tolerate bullies. The Valiants. Engines flared bright as the ship accelerated toward the alien fleet at maximum speed. On the bridge, every crew member worked with intense focus. Each person knew that the next few minutes would be the most important of their lives. This would determine not just their own survival, but the survival of millions of innocent aliens, and maybe even the future of humanity itself. Range in 30 seconds, Amy announced, her voice steady despite the fear everyone felt. All weapons ready to fire on your command, Peter confirmed. Daniel took a deep breath. This was it. The moment that would change everything. All weapons free. Fire when ready. The Valiant shuddered and shook as every single weapon on the ship fired at the same time. Torpedoes streaked through space, their engines burning white-hot. Railgun rounds, moving at incredible speeds, crossed the distance to the enemy ships in less than a second. The experimental plasma cannons, which had never been used in real combat before, unleashed streams of superheated matter that glowed like small stars. The closest alien warship never saw the attack coming. The torpedoes hit first, striking exactly where Amy had calculated. The ship's cooling vents exploded in a chain reaction. Then the railgun rounds punched through the weakened shields and tore into the ship's main reactor. The alien warship exploded in a massive fireball that lit up the entire star system like a second sun. Direct hit, Amy shouted over the noise and chaos. Target completely destroyed. On the planet's surface, the defenders who had been fighting a losing battle for days suddenly saw something impossible happen. One of the huge warships that had been bombarding their cities exploded in orbit. And through the debris and smoke, they saw a new ship, smaller than the enemy vessels, but moving with clear purpose and determination. And that ship was attacking the fleet that had been trying to kill them all. For the first time in many days, hope flickered back to life in the hearts of the defenders. In space above the planet, the Valiant banked hard to the left, dodging return fire from the enemy fleet, which was now fully alert and very angry. Daniel gripped his command chair as the ship shook from near misses. Target the second ship and fire, he commanded. The battle for the alien homeworld had truly begun now. The alien fleet's response came fast and hard. Energy beams that could cut through solid metal lanced through space, trying to destroy the small ship that had just killed one of their own. The Valiant twisted and turned, using its smaller size to dodge between the massive warships. The enemy vessels were powerful but slow, and their weapons were designed for destroying stationary targets. Not fast-moving ships? Shields down to 70%, Amy called out as another energy beam came close enough to make the whole ship shake. We cannot take many more hits like that. Daniel watched the tactical display with complete focus. The alien ships were moving to surround the Valiant, closing in like a trap. He needed to break their formation somehow, create chaos in their ranks so they would stop coordinating their attacks. Which ships are commanding the fleet? He asked Amy. Her fingers danced across the console, analyzing the patterns of communication between the enemy vessels. The bigger ships toward the back of their formation, sir. I count 3 of them. They are directing all the others. Jacob, broadcast on every frequency we have. Send them everything about humanity. Our music, our books, our mathematics, our history. I want them confused about what we are and what we can do. As Jacob began transmitting a massive data dump of human culture into space, the Valiant's weapons locked onto the second ship in their attack pattern. This time the aliens were ready. Their shields flared bright as the torpedoes struck, absorbing most of the damage. But Amy had planned for this. She had the railguns fire from a different angle. Catching the shields at their weakest point where they overlapped, the ship did not explode like the first one, but it began leaking atmosphere and spinning out of control. Its engines sputtered and died, and the massive vessel drifted away from the battle, no longer a threat. 2 ships down, Peter reported from his station. But we have 6 more breaking formation to intercept us directly. Daniel made a split-second decision based purely on instinct. Take us down into the planet's atmosphere. Force them to follow us. Sir, that is incredibly dangerous, Amy protested. We will be trapped between their ships and the planet's surface, which is exactly why they will not expect it. Helm, do it now before they can react. The Valiant dove straight down toward the purple planet below. As Daniel had predicted, 6 of the alien warships followed them down. The massive vessels struggled as they entered the atmosphere. Their shields, designed for fighting in the vacuum of space, had trouble adjusting to the friction and heat of atmospheric entry. The Valiant, being much smaller and more agile, cut through the upper atmosphere easily. I am reading multiple cities under heavy attack, Amy reported as they descended through the clouds. The coastal population centers are taking the worst damage. Through the forward view screen, Daniel could now see the surface clearly. Cities made of crystal towers and graceful bridges were burning. Smaller fighter craft, clearly belonging to the planet's defenders, fought desperately against overwhelming numbers. Everywhere there were civilians running, trying to find shelter that no longer existed. The scale of destruction was horrifying. Linda, I need maximum power to all weapon systems. Daniel called down to engineering through the communications link. You have got it. Captain, the chief mechanic replied, her voice strained. But I cannot promise how long the systems will hold under this stress. The pursuing alien ships opened fire, their energy beams tearing through the atmosphere. One beam came so close that it burned the Valiant's outer hull, sending damage reports flooding in from multiple sections of the ship. Red warning lights flashed all across the bridge. Now! Daniel shouted. The Valiant performed a maneuver that no ship its size should have been able to do. It spun completely around while still moving forward at high speed. A flip and burn that put every single weapon system in direct line with the 6 pursuing ships. At point-blank range, with atmospheric conditions disrupting their shields, the alien vessels were completely vulnerable. The Valiant unleashed everything it had. Torpedoes, railguns, plasma cannons, even the small-point defense lasers all fired at once. 3 of the pursuing ships were caught totally by surprise. Their shields failed to compensate for the atmospheric interference and the sheer volume of fire. The first ship broke apart completely, its pieces raining down into the purple ocean far below. The second one managed to pull up and climb, but not before taking critical damage to its main engines. The third tried to return fire, but a lucky torpedo strike hit its bridge section, and the ship went into an uncontrolled dive toward the surface. 3 more destroyed, Amy shouted, her voice filled with excitement and disbelief. The remaining 3 enemy ships finally realized how much danger they were in. They began pulling up, trying desperately to gain altitude and escape back to the safety of space. Daniel was not about to let them get away. "Chase them down," he ordered coldly as the Valiant climbed back toward orbit. Still pursuing the fleeing alien ships, something unexpected happened on the surface below. The planet's defenders, who had watched this incredible display of courage and combat skill, found new strength. Anti-ship weapons that had been kept silent to avoid drawing enemy fire suddenly activated. Every battery, every hidden defense platform, every last military installation that still had power opened fire on the damaged alien vessels trying to limp back to space. "Captain," Jacob called out urgently, "we are receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. Audio only, but the translation programs are working on it. They are asking who we are and where we came from." "Tell them," Daniel said, still watching the fleeing ships ahead of them, "that we are humans from the planet Earth and we heard their call for help. Tell them we do not abandon people who need us." As the message was translated and transmitted down to the surface, the Valiant caught up to the last fleeing enemy ship. A sustained burst from the railguns tore through its engine section, and the massive vessel began falling back toward the planet. Its crew fighting frantically to regain control, but the main battle was far from over. The rest of the alien fleet, now fully aware of the threat the Valiant represented, was reorganizing. And they were furious about losing so many ships to one small vessel. "Sir, all remaining enemy ships are breaking orbit and heading directly for us," Amy reported, her voice tense. "We have maybe 2 minutes before they are in weapons range." Daniel looked at the tactical display. 42 enemy ships remained operational and combat-ready, and all of them were now converging on the Valiant's position. They had scored an impressive victory so far, destroying or disabling 9 enemy ships. But against odds like this, survival seemed impossible. Then Peter pointed at something on his screen. "Captain, look at what is happening on the planet." Daniel looked, and what he saw made his heart surge with hope. All across the planet's surface, new energy signatures were appearing. The defenders were bringing every remaining weapon system online. Ancient defense platforms that had been built generations ago. Hidden artillery batteries. Emergency military reserves that had been held back for a final desperate stand. All of it was powering up and preparing to fight. The aliens on the surface had been ready to accept their extinction. But seeing the humans fight so desperately to save them had rekindled something primal. If these strangers from another world were willing to die defending people they had never met, then the least the defenders could do was stand and fight for their own home. "Jacob, open a communication channel to the planet," Daniel commanded. "All military frequencies." When the channel opened, Daniel spoke clearly and with passion. "This is Captain Daniel Carter of the human exploration vessel Valiant. We came to your world because we heard your distress signal crying out across space. We came because it was the right thing to do, because leaving you to die alone was unthinkable. Now I'm asking you directly, will you stand with us? Will you fight for your world, for your people, for your children? Will you show these invaders that you are not prey?" There was a moment of silence. Then a response came through in a voice that was clearly alien, but the emotion and determination behind it needed no translation. "We stand with you, humans of Earth. We will fight to our last warrior, to our final breath. For our world, for our families, for freedom. We stand. Then let us show these murderers what happens when they attack the wrong planets," Daniel said, his voice hard with resolve. "All forces engage at will. Today we fight as one." As the massive alien fleet descended on their position like an avalanche, the Valiant and the planetary defense forces rose to meet them. In the space above the purple planet, 2 civilizations that had never known of each other's existence, until days ago now fought side by side. Against a common enemy, the human ship darted between the enemy vessels like an angry hornet, striking and moving, never staying still long enough to be targeted effectively. From the surface, Precisely coordinated fire from hundreds of weapons platforms targeted the enemy ships that the Valiant had damaged, finishing them off one by one. It was the kind of coordinated defense that should have taken months of planning and training. But necessity and desperation had forged an instant alliance between two species, who did not even speak the same language yet. They communicated through actions, through tactical positioning, through... The space above the planet had become a nightmare of fire and destruction. The Valiant weaved through the enemy fleet, its crew working together with the precision that came from years of training and 3 days of desperate survival. But the ship was taking damage. Lots of damage. Torpedo Bay 3 is completely offline, Peter reported, scanning through the endless stream of damage reports flowing across his console. We have lost the starboard shield generators, and engineering reports we are down to 60% power on the main reactor. Then we fight with what we have left, Daniel replied, gripping the arms of his command chair as another massive explosion rocked the ship. Amy, what is the status on that command ship? The big one we designated as Alpha is still staying at the back of the fleet, sir. They are using the other ships as a protective screen around it. From the planet below, the defenders were giving everything they had. Their weapons might have been less powerful than the enemy's, but they had hundreds of firing positions and they knew how to use them. Every time an enemy ship moved too close to the atmosphere, coordinated fire from the surface would drive it back or destroy it completely. A heavy cruiser that moved too close was hit simultaneously by 3 massive energy beams from surface cannons. Its shields collapsed instantly, and follow-up fire from the Valiant's remaining torpedo tubes finished it off. The cruiser broke into large pieces that scattered across the upper atmosphere, burning up as they fell. That makes 12 enemy ships. Destroyed or disabled, Amy announced, trying to find some hope in the numbers. But they are still not retreating. Kyle Henderson's voice came through the ship's internal communication system. Captain, my Marines are ready and waiting. Just get us alongside one of those ships, and we will take care of the rest. Daniel thought about the option carefully. Destroying the enemy ships from a distance was slow work with the Valiant's damaged weapons. A boarding action was incredibly risky, but it could take ships out of the fight faster and maybe give them intelligence about who they were fighting and why. Peter, pick us a target. Something that is damaged and separated from the main group. There, sir. Peter highlighted a cruiser on the tactical display. She has taken hits and is venting atmosphere from several breaches. She has drifted away from the others. If we move fast, we can get to her before they can support her. Make it happen. Kyle, get your teams ready to board. The Valiant broke from its defensive pattern and accelerated hard toward the damaged enemy cruiser. The alien ship's captain must have realized what was about to happen because the vessel began to turn, trying to bring its weapons to bear. But the Valiant was faster and more maneuverable. Railgun fire raked across specific points on the cruiser's hull that Amy had identified as potential entry points. Breach confirmed, Amy reported. Sealed section on their port side with minimal atmosphere loss. Kyle, you are clear to go. The Valiant aligned itself carefully with the damaged section of the enemy ship, and magnetic grapples fired out, locking the two vessels together with a heavy metallic clang that echoed through both ships. In the Marine deployment bay, Kyle Henderson performed one final check of his weapon before nodding to his team. Listen carefully, Marines, he said to the 40 soldiers gathered around him in full combat armor. We have no intelligence about what is waiting for us inside that ship. These aliens have proven they are willing to commit genocide without hesitation, so expect them to fight viciously. Watch your corners, cover each other, and trust your training. We are going to take that ship and show them why humanity does not tolerate bullies. Move out, the boarding tubes extended from the Valiant, cutting through the remaining hull plating of the enemy vessel with industrial torches. The Marines poured through the breach, weapons raised and ready. They found themselves in a corridor that was definitely not designed with humans in mind. The ceilings were uncomfortably low, forcing the Marines to move in a crouch. The walls were covered in some kind of organic-looking material that pulsed with a sickly yellow light, making everything look diseased. Spread out into teams of 5, Kyle commanded. Find critical systems and plant explosives on anything that looks important. Move fast! The enemy warriors they encountered in those cramped corridors were terrifying to look at. They were huge creatures standing at least 8 feet tall. Each one had 4 arms ending in clawed hands. Their bodies were covered in natural armor plating that looked like insect shells. They carried energy weapons that could punch holes through steel walls. They were built for war, but being scary to look at did not make them better fighters than human Marines. The first battle happened at an intersection of 3 corridors. Energy bolts and bullets filled the air in a deadly crossfire. One Marine went down immediately, his armor smoking from a direct energy hit to his chest plate. But his squad mates responded with disciplined, accurate fire. The alien warriors fell one by one, clearly surprised by how effectively the humans fought despite being smaller and seemingly weaker. "These things are tough to kill," Corporal Ellen Hayes reported between bursts of gunfire. "But they go down eventually if you keep shooting." Kyle led his team deeper into the alien ship, following the rough schematics that Amy was sending to their helmet displays from the Valiant's sensors. They needed to reach either the bridge to capture the ship or the engine room to destroy it. Every corridor junction they passed, they left explosive charges. Every weapon system or control panel they found, they either destroyed or set to overload, back on the Valiant's bridge. Daniel watched the tactical situation continue to worsen. The main enemy fleet was getting more organized now. They had stopped their random attacks and were forming a proper battle formation, concentrating their fire and systematically cutting off all possible escape routes. "Sir, we are receiving another transmission from the planetary surface," Jacob reported. "The military commander wants to speak with you directly." "Put him through." The voice that came through the speakers was high-pitched and musical, but carried unmistakable authority and determination. "Captain Carter, I am Commander Victor of the Kefter Planetary Defense Force. Your species' intervention has given my people hope that we thought was lost forever. What are your plans?" Daniel did not waste time with diplomatic niceties. "We plan to help you survive, Commander, whatever it takes to achieve that." "Then I have a proposal for tactical coordination. We have ancient weapons platforms hidden in high orbit that we have been saving as a final resort. They are incredibly powerful but take time to charge and aim. If you can draw the enemy fleet into optimal firing position and hold them there, we can activate the platforms. It will be our last gambit. If this fails, my people will have nothing left. How much time do you need?" 20 of your minutes to bring the systems fully online and calculate proper firing solutions for maximum effect. 20 minutes of holding. Position against a fleet of over 30 warships that were now fully coordinated and very angry. Daniel looked around at his bridge crew. They were exhausted beyond measure, running on nothing but adrenaline and pure determination. The Valiant had taken damage that would normally require months in a repair facility. But nobody was suggesting they run away. "We will buy you that time, Commander," Daniel promised. "You can count on us. Valiant out." He turned to face his crew. "You all heard him. We need to hold for 20 minutes. Amy, plot us a course that keeps maximum enemy attention focused on us and away from the planet. Peter, take every bit of power we have left and split it between shields and weapons. Jacob, broadcast a message to that fleet on all their frequencies. Tell them if they want to kill us, they are welcome to try." As the Valiant began its desperate, holding action, dancing between enemy fire and returning shots whenever possible, Kyle and his Marines reached the engine room of the enemy cruiser. The chamber was enormous, filled with technology that seemed to blend mechanical and biological elements in disturbing ways that made several Marines feel sick just looking at it. "Plant the charges on those main support columns," Kyle ordered, pointing to massive structures that seemed to be holding the entire reactor assembly in place. "We have got 5 minutes to get back to the Valiant before this whole thing goes critical." That was when the ship's internal security force arrived in overwhelming numbers. Dozens of the 4-armed alien warriors poured into the engine room from multiple entry points, surrounding the human Marines. In the confined space filled with machinery and limited cover, The battle became desperate and chaotic. But human training and tactics proved decisive once again. The Marines used the alien equipment as cover, coordinated their fields of fire to avoid hitting each other, and made absolutely certain that every shot counted. But there were so many aliens, and they kept coming. "Fall back to the entry point!" Kyle shouted over the noise of gunfire and energy weapons. "We will detonate the charges remotely once we are clear." The Marines fought their way back through corridors that were now filled with enemy soldiers. 3 more Marines went down with serious wounds, but their teammates grabbed them and kept moving. Nobody was getting left behind on this ship. That was not the human way. You brought your people home, no matter what, when the last Marine finally made it back through the boarding tube. 3 weeks had passed since the great battle ended, but the USS Valiant remained in orbit around the Kefter homeworld. The ship had taken severe damage during the fight, and repairs would take time even with help from Kefter engineers who were eager to assist. But the crew was doing more than just fixing their vessel. They were helping the people on the planet below rebuild their shattered civilization. Daniel stood on the bridge, looking down at the purple planet through the main view screen. The ocean still sparkled beautifully in the sunlight, but the scars of war were visible everywhere. Entire cities had been reduced to rubble. Farmlands had been burned. Millions had died in the attack. Amy approached him quietly, carrying a datapad with the latest reports. "The final casualty numbers from the surface just came in," she said, her voice soft and sad. 7 million dead. 15 million wounded. 32 cities completely destroyed and many more heavily damaged. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. 7 million lives. Each one had been a person with dreams and families and futures. The number was so huge it was hard to truly understand. "How is our crew handling it?" "Better than I expected, honestly. Everyone understands what we accomplished here, and the Kefter have been incredibly grateful for everything we have done." "That helps." It was true. Over the past 3 weeks, bonds had formed between humans and Kefter that seemed to transcend the normal barriers between different species. The Kefter were tall and slender, with skin that changed colors based on their emotions. They looked nothing like humans, but grief sounded the same in any language. Courage was universal, and gratitude needed no translation. Some of the Marines had started teaching basic first aid techniques to Kefter civilians in the refugee camps. Jacob had been working day and night with Kefter linguists to build a proper translation system so the two species could communicate more easily. Even simple acts like sharing meals had become bridges between worlds. "Captain," Peter called from his station, "we have an incoming transmission from Earth. It is Admiral Harrison, marked as Priority 1. Daniel straightened his uniform reflexively. He had sent detailed reports of everything that happened, but this would be his first real-time conversation with Earth Command since the battle began. Put him through on the main screen. Admiral Marcus Harrison appeared, his stern face showing no emotion at first. He was an older man with gray hair and the kind of face that had seen everything. For a long moment, he just stared at Daniel while the bridge crew held their breath and waited. Then slowly, the Admiral smiled. "Captain Carter, I have read all of your reports. I have reviewed every sensor log and damage assessment. And I have to tell you, what you did was either the bravest or the most foolish decision any officer under my command has ever made." "Sir, I can explain my reasoning for." Harrison held up his hand to stop him. "I am not finished yet, Captain. You took an exploration ship into combat against overwhelming enemy forces. You risked your entire crew to save aliens we had never met before. According to every rule and regulation we have, you should probably be court-martialed for your actions." Daniel felt his heart sink. He had known this was a possibility, but hearing it said out loud still hurt. "However," Harrison continued, and his smile grew wider, "you also just made first contact with an alien civilization. You prevented a genocide. You showed the entire galaxy what humanity stands for. Earth is celebrating right now, Captain. The entire planet is talking about you and your crew. You are all heroes. The Planetary Council has already started drafting formal alliance agreements with the Kefter. We are not alone in the universe anymore, and we have you to thank for that." The bridge erupted with cheers and shouts of joy. Daniel felt a wave of relief so strong it almost made him dizzy. Around him, his crew was hugging each other and celebrating. Even Amy, who was normally very professional, had tears running down her face. "There is more you need to know," Harrison said once the noise died down. "The Kefter have shared their historical databases with us. Those attackers, the ones you fought, they call themselves the Jakar. They are a species that has been raiding and conquering for over 1,000 years. They have destroyed dozens of civilizations. Many species have tried to fight them, but none have ever succeeded in stopping them. The Kefter believe the only reason the Jakar retreated is because they had never encountered anyone who fought back like you did. You made humanity a target, Captain." "With all due respect, sir," Daniel replied firmly, "we were always going to be a target once we reached space and encountered hostile species. I would rather be a target that fights back than one that runs away or hides." Harrison nodded his agreement. "That is exactly what the Council said, which is why the Earth Defense Force is massively expanding its military shipbuilding program. We are also sending proper diplomatic teams to the Kefter homeworld, along with construction fleets to help rebuild what was destroyed. But your mission is changing, Captain. Once the Valiant is fully repaired, I want you to continue exploring this region of space. The Kefter have agreed to share their star charts and their knowledge of other species in this area. You will be humanity's ambassadors, our eyes and ears in unknown territory. We understand, sir. We will not disappoint you. I know you will not. One more thing, Captain. The entire crew of the Valiant is being awarded the Solar Cross for extraordinary courage in the face of overwhelming odds. You personally are being promoted to Commodore and will have command of a small fleet once we get more ships out there. Congratulations. You have earned it. Harrison out. As the transmission ended, the bridge crew erupted in celebration again. Daniel turned to look at them all. They looked exhausted and worn down, but also proud and ready for whatever came next. They had been through absolute hell together, and it had made them stronger down on the planet's surface. In a medical facility that had been set up in what remained of the capital city, Dr. Greg Palmer worked alongside Kefter doctors. Despite the huge biological differences between humans and Kefter, medicine proved to be another language that crossed species barriers. The dedication to healing, to saving lives, that was something both species understood perfectly. In the engineering section, Linda Shaw examined a piece of Kefter technology that their engineers had given her as a thank you gift. It was a power control system that was far more efficient than anything humans had developed. Linda was already thinking about how to integrate it into future Earth vessels to make them better and stronger. In the Marine barracks, Kyle Henderson stood before his assembled troops. 3 Marines had died in the battle, and their loss hurt everyone deeply. But during the rescue operations after the fighting ended, those same Marines had saved 16 Kefter civilians by pulling them from burning buildings. The memorial service for the fallen humans had been attended by hundreds of grateful Kefter, showing that honor and respect for warriors transcended species. "We did something good here," Kyle told his Marines. "We saved lives and protected innocent people. That is what we signed up for when we became Marines. Remember that when the nightmares start, because they will come, all of us will have bad dreams about this battle. But remember why we fought. Remember who we saved." Weeks turned into months as the Valiant completed its repairs and continued serving as humanity's presence in Kefter space. Diplomatic relations between the two species grew stronger every day. Trade agreements were negotiated. Cultural exchange programs started. The Kefter taught humans about their history and their technology. Humans shared Earth's music and art and literature. 2 civilizations that had been brought together by violence were now building a lasting friendship, but the galaxy was enormous. And humanity's actions had been noticed by many other species beyond just the Kefter, far away in a dark region of space. In a sector that no human had ever visited, the Jakar Empire held a war council. The survivors from the fleet that had been forced to retreat from the Kethter homeworld told their story to the gathered warlords. They spoke of a new species that fought with terrifying effectiveness. They described weapons that struck with precision. They talked about warriors who never gave up even when facing certain death. The Jakar had been conquering other species for 1,000 years. They had fought countless civilizations and crushed them all. But now, for the first time in their long history, they had been forced to run away from a battle. It was humiliating and unacceptable. These humans must be taught their proper place in the galactic order. The war leader growled, his forearms gesturing angrily. Gather all our fleets. Prepare our greatest warriors. We will show them what happens when prey species dare to challenge us. But not everyone in the council chamber agreed. Some of the older Jakar remembered the precision of human weapons fire. Others recalled how desperately the humans had fought to protect complete strangers. A few wise voices suggested that maybe the galaxy had changed, that the old ways of conquest might not work anymore. The debate went on for hours, with voices raised in anger and disagreement. But eventually, as so often happens, pride won out over wisdom. The Jakar began gathering their war fleets from across their empire, preparing for a conflict that would determine the future of the entire region of space. 6 months had passed since the battle that changed everything. The USS Valiant, now fully repaired and upgraded with both human and Kethter technology, was preparing to leave orbit for a new mission. But the ship that would depart was different from the one that had arrived. It was stronger, better armed, and carried a more experienced crew that had been tested in the fires of real combat. Daniel, now officially Commodore Carter, stood on the bridge watching the preparations for departure. The rank felt strange to him still. He did not feel like someone who deserved medals and promotions. He had just done what seemed right at the time. But the military and the government had decided otherwise. And now he commanded not just the Valiant, but 2 other ships that had arrived from Earth to form a small exploration and defense fleet. Final supply checks are complete, Amy reported from her station. All 3 ships are ready to depart on your order, Commodore. The other 2 ships, the USS Guardian and the USS Defender, were newer vessels built specifically for this mission. They were heavily armed, but also equipped for scientific research and diplomatic missions. Each carried a mixed crew of humans and Kethter volunteers who wanted to help explore the galaxy alongside their new allies. Status on our Kethter liaison officers? Daniel asked. Peter checked his datapad. All 12 are aboard and settled into their quarters. Commander Victor personally selected them. They are some of his best people, experienced in both military operations and diplomacy. Daniel smiled slightly. Victor had become a good friend over the past months. The Kethter commander had taught Daniel much about the political situation in this region of space. There were dozens of other species out here, some peaceful and some hostile. The Jakar were the biggest threat, but not the only danger that existed. Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the planet's surface, Jacob announced. It is Commander Victor. He says it is important. Put him through. The main view screen switched to show the Kethter commander. His skin was currently showing a deep blue color, which Daniel had learned meant he was feeling serious and concerned. Commodore Carter, I wanted to speak with you before your departure. I have news that you need to know about. What kind of news, Commander? Our long-range sensors have detected unusual activity in the border regions between our space and Jakar territory. Multiple fleet movements, supply convoys, the kind of activity that suggests they are preparing for something big. We believe they are gathering forces for a major offensive. Daniel felt his stomach tighten. They had known this was coming eventually. The Jakar had been humiliated, and a species built on conquest and violence would not let that stand unanswered. How long do we have? Our analysts believe they will need at least another 6 months to fully assemble their forces. Maybe longer. But when they come, it will be with everything they have. This will not be a raid or a limited attack. They are preparing for total war. Then we have 6 months to get ready, Daniel said firmly. To build alliances with other species. to strengthen our defenses, to make sure that when they come, we are ready for them. Victor's skin shifted to show streaks of orange mixed with the blue, indicating hope mixed with concern. That is exactly why your mission is so important, Commodore. Every species you can bring into an alliance against the Jacquard is one more world that will stand with us when the time comes. The Jacquard have terrorized this region for centuries. Many species hate them but have been too afraid to resist. Your victory showed them that resistance is possible. We will do everything we can, Commander. You have my word. After the transmission ended, Daniel called a meeting of his senior staff from all three ships. They gathered in the Valiant's conference room, a mix of human and Kefter officers sitting together around the table. It still amazed Daniel how quickly the two species had learned to work together. You all heard Commander Victor's report, Daniel began. The Jacquard are coming, and they are bringing everything they have. Our mission is now more critical than ever. We need to explore this region, make contact with other species, and build alliances. The more friends we have when the Jacquard attack, the better our chances of survival. Lieutenant Commander Harvey Stone, captain of the USS Guardian, spoke up. Sir, what if we encounter species that do not want to join an alliance? What if they decide to stay neutral or even side with the Jacquard? Then we respect their decision and move on, Daniel replied. We are not here to force anyone into anything. We offer friendship and alliance. We share what we know about the Jacquard threat. But ultimately, every species has to make their own choice about how to face the future. One of the Kefter officers, a young female named Scylla, whose skin showed patterns of determined green, added her thoughts. There are at least 15 species in the nearby sectors who have suffered from Jacquard raids in the past. If we can reach them and offer a united defense, many will join us. The key is proving that we are strong enough to actually stand against the Jacquard when they come. Then that is what we will do, Daniel said. We will prove it by actions, not just words. We explore, we defend those who need defending, we build bridges between civilizations. That is our mission. The fleet departed later that day, heading into unexplored space with hope and determination. The three ships traveled in a loose formation, their sensors scanning everything around them for signs of life or danger. The crew settled into the routine of long-range exploration, but everyone knew this was different from a normal mission. Everything they did now had higher stakes. Every decision could affect the coming war. 2 weeks into their journey, they detected their first sign of intelligent life. It was a small colony on a moon orbiting a gas giant. The species called themselves the Murithi, and they were traders and merchants who had built their civilization on commerce. Rather than conquest, the first meeting was tense. The Murithi had never seen humans before, and they were understandably cautious about unknown aliens arriving in armed warships. But Daniel had learned patience from the Kefter. He sent small delegations, shared gifts and information freely, and most importantly, he listened. The Murithi leader, an elderly individual named Corvin, whose species had 4 eyes and crystalline skin, met with Daniel in a neutral location on the moon's surface. They sat across from each other in a simple meeting hall while translators worked to bridge the language gap. Why should we trust you? Corvin asked directly. We know of the Kefter. We know they were attacked by the Jacquard. We know that somehow they survived with help from an unknown species. You claim to be that species, these humans from a distant world called Earth, but why should we believe you came to help rather than to conquer like the Jacquard? Daniel had expected this question. Because we are not asking you to give us anything except friendship. We are not demanding tribute or territory. We are offering to share technology, to trade fairly, and to stand together against common threats. The Jacquard are preparing for war, not just against the Kefter, but against anyone who opposes them. Alone, each of our civilizations is vulnerable. Together we can protect each other. Pretty words, Corvin replied. But words are cheap. Actions are what matter. Then judge us by our actions, Daniel said. Let us prove ourselves. We will stay here for a few days, help with any problems you might have, share our knowledge freely, and ask nothing in return. Then you can decide if you trust us or not. Over the next 3 days, the human and Kethter crews worked alongside the Marathi. Engineers helped repair a failing power generator that supplied energy to half the colony. Medical staff treated sick and injured Marathi using techniques adapted from both human and Kethter medicine. Marines helped build new defensive structures around the colony's perimeter, protecting it from the dangerous wildlife that lived on other parts of the moon. On the 4th day, Corvin called Daniel back for another meeting. This time the elderly Marathi's manner was warmer and more open. You have proven your words with actions. The Marathi will join your alliance. We may not be warriors, but we have ships and resources that can help. And we know of other species nearby who might also be willing to join if approached correctly. This became the pattern over the following months. The fleet would arrive at a new world, make contact carefully and respectfully, prove their intentions through helpful actions, and gradually build trust. Not every species agreed to join the alliance. Some were too afraid of Shakar retaliation. Some were too isolated and wanted no part in galactic conflicts. Some were simply too different in their thinking to understand the concept of mutual defense. But slowly, steadily, the alliance grew. The Marathi traders brought in 3 more species who trusted their judgment. A race of warrior poets called the Draven agreed to contribute their powerful fleet after human. Marines helped rescue a group of their people from pirates. An ancient civilization of scholars called the Terminus shared their extensive knowledge of Gakar tactics and weaknesses in exchange for human help in protecting their libraries. 5 months after leaving Kethter space, Daniel's fleet had established contact with 18 different species, and 11 of them had agreed to join the defensive alliance. It was not enough to guarantee victory against the Jakar, but it was a start. A good start, then came the